podcast agency. But beyond that, because yes, that's cool and all, I also read about 250 books a year. I live a happier life reading for fun. Around 2019, my mom passed away due to a drug overdose. And my sister and I were like, why in the world did she join that cult when we were little? So we started our podcast, Two Sisters and a Cult, where we talked about cults. We talked about these different avenues of people and why they would join cults, because we couldn't ask that question. So it was our way of therapeutically processing our grief while also understanding why in the world do people join cults. But cults are depressing. I want to get into podcasting. I was able to create 2 podcasts, edit them, produce them, create show notes, get them out there, do the marketing. I reached out to my business friends and said, hey, I want to see if I can do this. I want to see if I can create a podcast for you based on what I know about it. 4 years later, here we are. We have released over 25 podcasts and produced over 50. We are just about to hit 2,000 episodes produced. Our clients tend to be business owners who are using their podcast to generate leads. We do something that I have not seen any podcast production companies that are launchers do.
You sure you want to share that?
And this is something that I preach constantly, and that is market research. Everyone wants to jump behind the mic and start talking when you don't even know who your audience is. We put in 8 to 10 hours of market research. We listen to other podcasts that are talking about similar topics, finding where our clients can talk differently, where they can stand out in their industry rather than just saying the same things that everybody else is saying. How can you approach it in a different way? How can you be on your soapbox, right? And also, you're not going to want to go back and listen to those first 4 episodes.
It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm starting another podcast under our umbrella, and it's called Day One. And we got into this huge debate. Everyone wants to tell me what to do. I'm like, you're not my audience. That's why I don't promote my podcast on my personal page. And like, we got into this whole back and forth because when I first started, I thought my audience would be my friends. It's to gain new clients, to be informative, to be ahead of the pack, to be a thought leader in whatever industry that you're working in.
Yeah, man, the analytics is where dreams go to die, quite honestly, right? Especially in that first year. And I am, before they even hand me money, during that initial call where we are talking, this is what our prices are, this is what it looks like, this is what our process is. Like, we know what we're doing. Think about podcasting as starting a new YouTube channel. If you were to start a new YouTube channel today, what would be your expectations? You're not going to get 100,000 followers next. We actually tell our clients, we don't look at stats for the first 3 months. Launch with us or not. So if you're trying to figure out where should you look at your stats and then look at what are the top 2 podcast apps that people are listening on, then dive into those stats. So getting into this business was really about being able to use your voice. So I did mention I grew up in a cult. And one of the things about growing up in a cult is that you do not have a voice. You have to listen to the leader. What the leader says goes, and there's no and or buts about it. You have to be quiet. And also add in the fact of being a child in the cult, children are to be seen and not heard. And so when I created Galati Media, I knew I wanted this to be a space where I could allow my clients to speak their voice. And so the majority of our clients are using their podcast to make a difference in the world. And I'm like,
I was listening to what you were saying, and it's admirable that you're doing that.
In its current iteration of voice behind a microphone. What we're seeing is people wanting to take the content that they're creating. So creators like us saying, I'm already sitting here talking. Let me just throw my face up there too. So I don't think that podcasting as an audio form is actually going to go anywhere, because the majority of podcast listeners, like we're talking 70%, are listening in their car while they're driving. You shouldn't
Okay.
be looking at a YouTube video. So yeah, the majority still listens that way. But this is to capture that other small percentage that would like to see our faces.
I think a lot of that started because of the titles, thinking about the titles. And it made me take more time to think about the titles. This is great content. I wish you would take more time. So I use AI to help me with title ideas. I use AI to help me, but this is after I've done my interview. This is after I've done those, because I'm not good at creating titles. I use AI to help me with keyword searches. But that's the back end of the thing that is necessary to build an audience.
Now, right now, we are seeing a jumbled mess of social media people who are saying, I'm an expert, when really all they did was tell AI to write them a caption, and then they copied and pasted it. So many creators are seeing a massive dip in their traction right now on social media. And I think a lot of it is because the algorithm's like, what is real and what is not? Who's legit and who's not? Who do we need to be pushing forward and who do we need to be not pushing forward, because we can't tell the difference. And so I think that a lot of people are pulling back from social media and having these more one-on-one conversations, one to a few conversations. I love it. It's great. I am not going to personally invest, because a lot of our tools that we use, I'm paying for, right? That we're using to produce our client stuff. I pay for them, and that's okay.
Shout out to Descript. I'm not a reseller. Descript changed my life. The hardest thing about podcasting was speaking into a microphone and not hearing feedback.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you said that, because I was just talking to my producer, and I had to ask him. I said, before you put up the episodes, do you actually listen to them?
So I never had any intention of being a full-time entrepreneur.
Okay.
I think COVID helped, because I have asthma. And so the idea of going out and actually getting a job while having asthma and COVID's rampant, I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to bring that home to my kids. I want to try to make this work. The first client came within a week of me leaving. I got a ton of visibility and just kept getting people reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love help with my podcast. Hey, I'd love a strategy session. You don't go on a lot of vacations. And I honestly wouldn't have it any other way, because as you can tell, I love what I do. I love being able to stand behind people and get their voices amplified.
They were always like romantic. They were like harmful, but then at the other time you can see them embracing. What's going on?
The romance novel industry has changed so much since the 90s and the 80s. A lot of it was like fantasized rape.
Thank you. This is fun. I think that you should talk about the books that you read, because the way that you just gave that history of novels from the 80s and 90s and the shift and timestamps and all of that stuff. I think if you even go back to the 70s and the 60s and read how those things shifted.
I have told my friends, let's start a podcast about books.
Listen, we appreciate your likes, shares, comments, listenership. That's the way that we get our currency. If you're a podcaster, or you are in the podcasting game and you are running a business, podcast should be connected to something, whether you're coaching or anything like that. Podcasting is not just about having a conversation, as we just had a beautiful conversation. It's also about building the infrastructure.